Mother dearest, or deadliest. Welcome back, Darklings. Today, we dive into the chilling tales of daughters who turned against their mothers. Get ready to explore the dark side of family ties as we uncover the twisted motives and shocking betrayals that shattered lives. These aren't your average family dramas, these are true horror stories that will send shivers down your spine. Brace yourselves for these spine-tingling true horror stories. The Puppet Master and the Prisoner. Our first story takes us deep into the world of Gypsy Rose Blanchard, a young woman seemingly plagued by a myriad of debilitating illnesses. Confined to a wheelchair, reliant on a feeding tube, and seemingly battling muscular dystrophy, leukemia, and epilepsy, Gypsy Rose painted a picture of a life riddled with pain and medical intervention. But behind this facade lurked a horrifying truth, a manipulation so profound it would make your skin crawl. You see, Gypsy Rose's mother, Dee Dee, was the mastermind behind her daughter's perceived ailments. This, my friends, is a classic case of Munchausen syndrome by proxy, a mental health condition where a caregiver, typically a parent, fabricates or exaggerates their child's symptoms for attention and sympathy. Dee Dee had the world convinced that Gypsy Rose was a chronically ill child, subjecting her to countless unnecessary surgeries, pumping her full of medication, and controlling every aspect of her life. Gypsy Rose was trapped, a prisoner in her own body, her existence a twisted performance orchestrated by her own mother. Isolated from the outside world, deprived of a proper education and robbed of her autonomy, Gypsy Rose yearned for a life free from her mother's suffocating control. But escaping Dee Dee's web of lies would prove to be a dangerous, ultimately fatal, endeavor. Imagine, if you will, the years of manipulation, the constant fear, and the desperate longing for freedom that Gypsy Rose endured. It's enough to make you wonder, how far would you go to break free from such a toxic and controlling situation? As Gypsy Rose grew older, she began to realize the extent of her mother's deception. The internet became her window to the outside world, a portal that allowed her to connect with others and discover the horrifying truth about her condition. She wasn't sick, not really. She was a victim, held captive by her mother's need for attention and control. Desperate for a way out, Gypsy Rose sought solace in online relationships, believing that love could be her salvation. Enter Nicholas Godejohn, a young man she met online, someone who, in her mind, held the key to her freedom. However, their relationship was far from healthy, fueled by desperation and a shared desire to escape their respective realities. In June 2015, the unthinkable happened. Dee Dee Blanchard was found brutally murdered in her home, stabbed to death while Gypsy Rose was away. The community was shocked, reeling from the loss of a woman they believed to be a devoted caretaker. But, as the investigation unfolded, the truth, my friends, was far more sinister than anyone could have imagined. Gypsy Rose, far from being a victim of a random act of violence, had orchestrated her own mother's murder. She had convinced Nicholas, her online boyfriend, to come to her rescue, to silence the woman who had held her captive for so long. The details of the murder are gruesome, a testament to the desperation and rage that had festered within Gypsy Rose for years. The trial that followed sent shockwaves through the nation, as the world grappled with the complex and disturbing nature of the case. How could a daughter, a seemingly frail and innocent young woman, be capable of such a heinous act? Was it an act of self-preservation, a desperate plea for freedom, or was it something more sinister, a cold and calculated murder? The price of freedom. Now let's delve deeper into the psyche of Dee Dee Blanchard, the architect of this twisted tale. What drove a mother to subject her own daughter to a lifetime of medical abuse? Was it a thirst for attention, a need to be seen as a saintly caregiver, or something even more sinister lurking beneath the surface? Dee Dee's past holds clues to her unraveling. Whispers of previous accusations of fraud and theft paint a picture of a woman who may have been teetering on the edge of sanity long before Gypsy Rose entered the scene. Some speculate that Dee Dee suffered from factitious disorder imposed on another, formerly Munchausen syndrome by proxy, a mental illness in which a person, often a caregiver, fabricates or exaggerates a dependent's symptoms for attention and sympathy. Imagine the years of manipulation, the carefully crafted lies, and the web of deception that Dee Dee spun around her daughter. She was a master manipulator, convincing doctors, friends, and even family members that Gypsy Rose was gravely ill. But behind closed doors, a darker reality played out, one where Dee Dee held absolute power, controlling Gypsy Rose's every move and thought. The extent of Dee Dee's control is chilling. She isolated Gypsy Rose from the outside world, limiting her contact with others and ensuring she remained dependent on her. She convinced Gypsy Rose that she was mentally incompetent, further solidifying her control over her daughter's life. Dee Dee thrived on the attention and sympathy she received as a devoted caregiver. She relished in the praise, the donations, and the outpouring of support from a community that had bought into her carefully constructed facade. But this facade, like all facades, eventually crumbled, revealing the monster lurking beneath. The murder of Dee Dee Blanchard was brutal, a testament to the rage and resentment that had been simmering beneath the surface for years. While some may argue that Gypsy Rose was a victim, driven to murder by her mother's relentless abuse, others believe she was a master manipulator herself, playing the role of the helpless invalid while secretly plotting her escape. The truth, my friends, is likely far more complicated. This wasn't a simple case of good versus evil, but a tragic tale of two deeply flawed individuals locked in a toxic and ultimately deadly dance. Dee Dee's need for control and Gypsy Rose's desperation for freedom collided in the most horrific way imaginable, leaving a trail of devastation in their wake. Chapter 3. The Girl Who Cried Murder. Now let's turn our attention to a case that will make you question everything you thought you knew about family. Jennifer Pan, a seemingly ordinary young woman from a quiet Toronto suburb, becomes the central figure in a chilling tale of betrayal, deceit, and cold-blooded murder. Jennifer Pan was living a double life. To her parents, she was a dutiful daughter, a successful graduate student with a bright future ahead of her. But behind their backs, Jennifer was living a lie, a carefully constructed facade that hid a web of secrets and forbidden love. You see, Jennifer had never truly escaped the shadow of her strict upbringing. Her parents, Bin and Hui Hanpan, were traditional Chinese immigrants who valued hard work, obedience, and academic achievement above all else. Jennifer, desperate to please them, had spent her entire life striving for their approval, but it seemed like no matter how hard she tried, she could never quite reach their impossibly high standards. As the years went by, the pressure to succeed, the constant scrutiny, and the suffocating weight of her parents' expectations began to take their toll. Jennifer sought solace in a secret relationship with Daniel Wong, a young man her parents would never approve of. He represented rebellion, freedom, and a life outside the rigid confines of her upbringing. But her secret romance couldn't stay hidden forever. When Jennifer's parents discovered the truth about her relationship and her fabricated academic achievements, their world came crashing down. They were furious, heartbroken, and felt betrayed by the daughter they thought they knew. The rift between Jennifer and her parents deepened, pushing her further into the arms of Daniel. Desperate to hold on to him and the promise of a life free from her parents' control, Jennifer hatched a plan so twisted and shocking that it would send shockwaves through the nation. Imagine, if you will, the chilling phone call, the panicked cries for help as Jennifer's parents are brutally attacked in their own home by masked intruders. Jennifer, seemingly the sole survivor of the horrific ordeal, recounts the terrifying details of that night, how armed men invaded their home, demanding money and ultimately leaving a trail of blood and shattered lives in their wake. But as the police investigated the crime, inconsistencies in Jennifer's story began to emerge. The evidence didn't add up. Her demeanor, too calm, too collected for someone who had just endured such a traumatic experience, raised red flags. The more they dug, the more suspicious Jennifer became. The truth, as it always does, eventually came to light. Jennifer Pan, the dutiful daughter, the victim of a horrific home invasion, had orchestrated the entire ordeal. She had hired hitmen to murder her parents, believing that their deaths would free her to be with Daniel, and finally escape the suffocating grip of her upbringing. The trial that followed was a media frenzy, as the world grappled with the depths of Jennifer Pan's betrayal. How could a daughter, a seemingly model child, orchestrate the murder of her own parents? Was it cold-blooded greed, a desperate act of rebellion, or was she a victim herself, driven to the brink by years of emotional and psychological abuse? The case of Jennifer Pan is a stark reminder that darkness can lurk even in the most unexpected places, and sometimes the people we trust the most are capable of unimaginable acts. It's a chilling tale of family secrets, betrayal, and the devastating consequences of unchecked ambition and resentment. These stories remind us that sometimes the most terrifying monsters are the ones we know, the ones who share our bloodlines, the ones who raise us, the ones who we should be able to trust implicitly. But as we've seen, family ties can be as fragile as they are strong, and sometimes, those bonds are broken in the most horrific ways imaginable. Stay safe, and until next time, keep your lights on. Remember, the next time you hug your mother, be thankful she's not as crazy as the ones we talked about today.